welcome to yet another juicy, sizzling, red-hot battle report for Kings of War. This time, the League of Rhordia versus Ogres in the control scenario. So, this is the second warm-up game for the 4-foot Snake GT. If you haven't seen the first one yet, then you should probably go and watch that first so you can see if I've learned any lessons or learned to adapt this list at all, because it's exactly the same list as the previous game. So let's go through it quickly, shall we, for the Rhordians. So it's 1,995 points plus a living legend. So we've got the second breakfast formation, which is Spearlings, a Horde, 2 regiments. The Horde has the Brew of Strength in this list, by the way. There's also a Master Sergeant in there. All of those units become Defense 4 with Ensnare as a result of the formation. Then we have a Halfling Archer Horde who are irregular now. There is a unit of Halfling Knights, a regiment. There is a Horde of Honour Guard with the Potion of the Caterpillar. There is an Army Standard Bearer, not Halfling, just regular Army Standard Bearer with Loot of Insatiable Darkness. There is the Duke on Winged Arrowles, not Ancient. He has the Healing Brew. There is Halfling Sorcerer who is mounted with the Zephyr Crown, so his Windblast 7 does damage now. Then there are 2 Iron Beasts and 2 Volley Guns. And the Living Legend, which in this game was represented with one of my Goblin models, which you will see in a minute, because the actual model I'm making for the tournament wasn't ready at the time of this game, but it is ready now, so you'll be able to see that in the tournament report, which will be coming up possibly tomorrow from this video's point of view. So, the Living Legend that I've got is Colossal Nick, who is a Height 2 Halfling Giant with Windblast 7, which also does damage. He has a lot of other special rules, like Headstrong, Iron Resolve, Strider, and so on. He's okay in combat. My opponent, on the Ogre side, has gone for a different legend. He has gone for, I can't even remember what he's called, but he's called John, something John. And he's kind of a Kung Fu master, if you will. And he's pretty damn tasty at fighting, especially against monsters and heroes, I am led to believe. So, the control scenario, the board is divided into 6 2 by 2 foot squares, and at the end of the game, whoever has got the most unit strength with its majority in those squares will claim that square. Each one is worth 1 point, apart from the one opposite you on your opponent's side, straight in the middle, and that is worth 2 if you can control that one. So, on the opponent's forces, we have the Hell on Wheels chariot formation. So here's the first of the chariot regiments. There are some shooters there in the difficult terrain. There are some red goblin fleabags. There's a red goblin bigot next to them. Then there is a chariot hero at the back there. He's part of the formation. There is Gakamak. There is Grokkagamok and Nomagarok, I believe he's called. Both of those characters are in there. There is also a Warlock. There is Grokkagamok's finest Braves, and there is also a horde of warriors as well in there. Over on this side, there is John, who is a big combat beast, height 4, I believe. And there is the other half of the chariot formation there. So, on my side, on the left flank, I've gone for the 2 Windblasty characters alongside the Honour Guard. I don't want the Honour Guard to get charged. I want to do the charging first, so I put Windblast with them. 2 lots of it, so if my opponent wants to fight, he's going to have to move right up into my face and get charged first. And if the Honour Guard want to go into the middle, where they actually have a speed advantage over the enemy, where there are some slower, just speed 6 units compared to the speed 7 of the Honour Guard, if I want to send them that way, then I will use the 2 wind-blasting heroes to keep the left flank units at bay and nudge them back so they can't charge me in the flank when I turn to go that way. So we'll see if that works out, shall we? Because that hill is only height 2, the Honour Guard height 3, so there'll be lots of seeing over that hill. That won't really factor in too much. Whereas I think everything on this side is able to see over the hill, apart from my 2 heroes there, and everything they would potentially see is at least height 3 over on the other side, so that hill isn't going to be a factor at all. In the middle, I've gone for my horde of spearlings backed up by the 2 iron beasts and the standard bearer, which is something I tried with mixed success in the previous game. You should go and watch that first if you haven't seen it. That was against orcs, but again I've gone for that. So I've also got the horde there around that wall. I want most things that charge them to be hindered as well as ensnared, which is going to make it a nightmare to get through them, and then I'll be able to use the breath attacks over the top while they're stuck fighting the unit, and then potentially when my horde does eventually crumble, then I've got my iron beasts there ready to come in and mop up. That's the theory anyway. Then we've got my big shooting block there. We've got both of the volley guns and the archers. Most of that is in difficult terrain. Then we've got the 2 regiments of spearlings there backed up by the Duke. I'll explain the positioning of the Duke in a minute when you see a bit of a better angle. And then we've got the halfling knights over on the right flank there. So they are matched up with a chariot regiment who are faster than my knights, but I'm not going to push the knights forward. I'm going to push the infantry forward first and maybe tempt out a charge. So turn 1. And you can see here that I've got these woods, which is where my Duke is. He is kind of in line with these woods underneath. So he was mainly hiding from the shooters, and also because there were no available flanks, the Duke can actually land behind these woods and not be seen by the majority of the opposing army. He could then potentially fly over the top of the woods and land somewhere amusing, maybe, in the coming turns. For example, next to the ogre shooters, who have the reload rules, they won't be able to turn round and shoot him. You can see that in turn 1, my opponent has moved up his red goblin flea bags up there. He's using a dice to mark out one of my charge distances. He's got his chariots not moving forward too rapidly yet. Over in the centre, he's pushing up units, keeping them invisible behind the hill to lots of my shooting blocks down there. Doesn't want to get gunned down by volley guns and the archers, at least not yet. And over on the left, as I look at it, he's got John, and the chariots have just moved up. Not drastically far. They don't want to come into charge range of my honour guard. That would be sheer lunacy. And then the ogre shooters. Well, 1 damage or 2 damage, and they waver a volley gun. Wow. And then the warlock, I believe, puts 2 damage on the other one and doesn't waver it. It could have been the warlock. It could have been, is it Nomogrok, his name? I always forget that guy's name. But he's kind of the wizardy character, the one that isn't Grokkagamok. So there's how it's looking at the moment. Not a spectacularly large advance. You'll see that he's got his bigot behind the flea bags there, so that should I want to gun him down, I'll be unable to, because the line of sight is blocked, and that means that he's probably going to have something to attack possibly one of my war machines with next turn, regardless of who I shoot there. So a delivery system for the bigot he's gone for, perhaps. Turn 1 for the Rhordians. So the Duke has moved up there. I can't really see anything to charge it, as far as I can tell, but I've also put him in a position where he can jump next turn alongside the ogre shooters and threaten them. Everything else is moving up a bit. I haven't put anything into charge range at this stage, and I'm quite happy to keep the regiments behind the Duke because he's going to be moving very soon. He is not in the woods, so no one can see him. In the centre, I've moved up my horde onto the wall, so things that charge that unit likely to become wavered. It depends if it's much of a multi-charge that comes in. The Iron Beast's just chilling behind there. All my shooting is going to be launched out there. The Honour Guard have moved up, and I've actually turned them inwards, so they're threatening the enemy a little bit. I think I've turned them inwards slightly. And then my 2 wind-blasting characters, they actually murder. One of them, on its own, murders John, the living legend, with only 4 damage. Because he's not inspiring, or if he was, I must have rolled it twice, but I don't think he is. So he just dies. If he is inspiring, though, then I did it twice. So he's toast. The chariots took a bit of damage as well, blasted them back, so they're not in charge range of the Honour Guard. I weighed up how close I could get the Honour Guard to them with the likelihood of how far I would need to blast them, so I put them in quite safe, so I only needed to blast the units 1 or 2 inches to successfully get them out of the way. And then I've got my shooting block here, and I waver the regiment or the troop, should I say, of red goblins, and also the caster up there as well. He's taken some damage, but he's not wavered. So there's how it looks. There's not too much in way of charging opportunities here. Turn 2 for the ogres. So you can see that the chariots have positioned themselves there. They're actually, I believe they're giving up their flank, possibly. Is it a flank to the Honour Guard? I'm not sure. Maybe they lined it up perfectly so it wouldn't be a flank. But they've positioned themselves so that they can't be pushed into anywhere, basically. They can't be pushed away from the wind blast because they're next to a piece of terrain. I think they may have just made sure it was frontage. But they are happy to be charged by the Honour Guard, which is interesting. In the centre, everything's moved up into sight now, so I'm going to be able to start gunning things down, hopefully, unless my war machines get killed. And you can see that the flea bags moved. They're wavered, so they couldn't move that far, but they did move a bit, and that freed up a gap. So, first of all, the ogre shooters, they put more damage onto that volley gun, and the other volley gun was killed by the bigot, who was shielding himself with the flea bags, and when they moved out the way, he was then able to charge it. So he's going to be a bit of an annoyance. I'm going to have to turn something round to deal with him, because I don't have any individuals there that are capable of fighting him particularly. Okay, turn 2 for me. So his chariots still haven't come forward on this side, so I push both my regiments into the woods. So if he wants to charge them at some point, he's going to be hindered big time and ensnared. And I've put my knights out of charge range of his chariots there. The Master Sergeant, you can see at the back, is inspiring those units, and he's going to be able to fire off his bow as well. My archers and the volley gun, I think they finish off the flea bags because they would have been in charge range next turn and could have potentially messed up one of my units, so I thought they had to go now. And I also put damage onto this unit of ogres here. I think these are the warriors, so they're getting up there in damage now. And then this guy, the Iron Beast, and he puts 2 damage on him with the breath attack, which I turned round to use on him, thinking, I could probably stand to have the Iron Beast turned round for 1 turn. Looking back now, if we, let's see, do we have a wider shot of this? I'll get to that in a minute because there's going to be consequences for this action, but you'll see. So over here, the Honour Guard, I think he must have positioned himself out of the charge range of the Honour Guard, but I've moved sideways now, which means that I'm now in their flank and also within charge range. So is he going to move again, or is he going to stay there and take a charge in the flank? We shall see. I've also got the wind blasting heroes, which attempted to do more damage to them. I don't think there was much accomplished there, though. But you can see here that my Iron Beast has turned round, thinking that, well, that horde in front of them, they're not going to die in one go, because anything that charges in will be ensnared, and there's a wall poking out the front, so at least something significant, which would be the Grokgamok's finest braves, would become hindered should they charge into that unit there as well. So I would be fairly confident of surviving whatever gets thrown at them next turn. So I'm thinking the Iron Beast didn't need to be looking that way. However, to play it safe, I think I probably could have had the Iron Beast turned slightly less in that direction, so that if the unit does get killed in combat, I could still then have a potential target to charge with the Iron Beast, because at the moment you won't be able to see anyone that kills that unit. So I think I turned him a bit too far out of overconfidence in the Horde's survival abilities there. Turn 3, so he gets the triple charge in, so the Braves are going to be hindered, but Grokgamok and the Chariot hero will not, although the Chariot won't be getting any Thunderous Charge, and they're all ensnared. And I've got Inspiring right behind them as well. So he pushes everyone up, this big clump in the centre. So my strategy now, because he's got this massive blob, most of his army's unit strength kind of mashed into the middle of the table, my plan effectively is try and keep them tied up as long as possible, and then claim all the outer sections of the board with my units. Because I've got enough units, so if I just kind of dance them around the back, and that should be enough if I can hold up this blob in the centre, because they're all in one place, and I can use Wind Blast later on in the game to dictate which section they're in, because I'm going second as well. So if I can, even if I don't kill them all, I can compress them into scoring a minimal amount of points, hopefully. That's the plan. This little hero back here, this bigot, is being annoying. He gets behind and starts shooting away at my volley gun there, which is annoying. So you can see how this flank is looking. He's actually pushed his chariots up into charge range of my halfling knights now. He obviously wants me to charge him, but I'm probably going to take it anyway, because it's probably a good idea to get the first hit in on chariots that have a lot of crushing, or thunderous mainly. They do have some crushing, I think. So, let's see what happens. And what does he do? And the shooters, they actually take out the volley gun there with their combined might. So that's not nice. And the horde does go down in one go, which means turning the Iron Beast all the way around was a bit of a mistake. So what I could have done potentially is keep the horde further back slightly, so that more units charging in could have been hindered by the wall, potentially. That would have been an option. But I think I was just too overconfident in their survival there. So turn 3 for Rhordia. The Honour Guard charge into the chariot regiment over there that didn't really move. I think they just turned so it would be a front charge, and that was it. They accepted they were going to get charged, and they got munched to death by the Honour Guard, as expected, so I now own the left flank. Then I've got my Wind Blast heroes. They move inwards a little bit, and with the archers as well, put damage onto the warriors there, chipping away at them. My Master Sergeant moves back and starts shooting at the bigot, and puts some serious damage on him. Almost gets rid of him, but it's a waver. My Iron Beast charges into the Grockamok, looking at everyone's relative nerve values around there, and who I would want flanking me afterwards. Then I thought that was probably the best bet going for him, because the Braves, if they charge into the flank of the Iron Beast, they are going to be hindered, and that makes it slightly more palatable. And I thought I've got a chance of taking out Grocky in one go, but unfortunately it was not to be. The Iron Beasts, they're not that reliable in combat hitting on 5s, but the number of attacks is nice. So I charge in with my knights into the chariots, don't do that much damage, but got rid of their thunderous charge. And this bad boy, the Duke on winged Arrowles. Now I don't think I took a picture of him behind enemy lines earlier, or if I did I didn't mention it, but he kind of snuck beside the shooters but didn't attack them, didn't charge them in the flank because he would have been hindered, and I don't think I would have killed them. So I think what's more important is to threaten the centre at this stage, because he's got a lot of units facing towards me, and I could charge something in the rear if all goes well over there. So he's moved into the middle. You can see his position there, so he's still not going to get shot. And the only things that are going to get shot by the shooters at the moment are mainly units that I've got in cover who are stealthy. So I'm not overly concerned by them at this moment. So you can see I've kind of surrounded his blob in the middle there, but that horde crumbling in one go could put a bit of a dampener on that. Turn 4 for the Ogres. So he does flank charge the Iron Beast with the Braves. He also double charges the other Iron Beast, and this one is with Grocky and the Chariot Hero. He also charges the warriors into the Archer Horde. So this could all collapse horribly in the middle here for me, but I'm confident that at least something will survive out of this. And not much going on up there. The Honour Guard is still a big threat there. And his bigot is wavered, so I think he moves it backwards a bit. So the shooters, what do? Well, they put 2 damage onto the stealthy and in cover regiment of spearlings. The Braves in the flank, as predicted, they're not that amazing going in hindered on a defense 6 unit, and they only put 9 damage on and aren't able to kill it. However, the other Iron Beast does go down, which means Grocky is now freed up to wreak havoc all over the place. And the archers get wavered, which is alright, because they weren't going to be able to shoot after taking damage anyway. And over here, my knights become wavered as a result of the chariot countercharge, which isn't very nice. However, it's not the end of the world, as you'll see why in a moment, because... So, turn 4, and the Honour Guard, and I feel like this is actually an illegal move here, because you can see they're facing that way, and now they've moved all that distance. I feel like I may have treated them as if they were nimble here and moved them too far. However, I as far as I recall, it doesn't actually affect anything, them moving that extra distance there. They haven't gone into anyone, they haven't got their charge range usable yet. No one is within their charge range as a result of that extra distance. They haven't moved out of anyone's charge range as a result of that extra distance. And it's not really a spoiler to tell you that if they have moved too far there, it doesn't affect the game outcome, because I think next turn they move less than they could at maximum anyway. So that's lucky there, but it just shows you, because I've just been dealing with one unit of cavalry that are nimble, then inadvertently treating another one as if they were nimble, which I'm pretty sure is what happened here, looking at the positioning of the unit there. I have taken nimble on them before as an upgrade, but I think Caterpillar is probably the better choice. So, the Duke goes into the flank of this hero here, flying down. I thought that was a tasty option to take, because it would have left him out of charge arc of Grocky, and that's one guy I want to keep out of combat as much as possible. So I don't manage to kill that character, but I do waver it. The Iron Beast countercharges into the Braves and does some damage, but not enough, so he's going to get killed. And the Knights move backwards, meaning that one of the regiments of Spearlings are able to charge into the chariots instead, and it's probably good that it was in the front, because that would block them being able to charge the Knights again next turn. But it didn't matter anyway, because I wavered them. So that's nice. Not much damage on them, but a nice nerve roll, and they are wavered as a result of the Spearling regiment. So the Knights are going to be able to survive for another day now. They've been rescued. And over here, the Master Sergeant failed to do anything to the Bigot, I think, there. Then my two Windblast characters are kind of working their way back around. I'm keeping Colossal Nick, represented by this proxy for now, out on the left, because he wants to claim table sections at the end of the game, because he's a monster. Whereas the Sorcerer can just wander around willy-nilly because he can't score anyway, so it doesn't matter where he is. All I have to be concerned with is making sure that he can hit things. And that 5, it's not his wounds there, I think that's just marking where the table sections are divided. So there is some damage inflicted to a hero with their Windblast there. I think it's the Warlock that takes the damage there. So you can see how it looks, and the Honour Guard, they haven't got the ability to charge next turn, but the shooters may become concerned with them at some point. And the other regiment of Spearlings that didn't charge into the chariots have moved up a bit further through the woods. And you can see, because of the dividing line, I've got quite a lot of units advancing on that top right section there. And it's kind of coming together, this plan. My front line of the Spearling Horde and the Iron Beast looks like it's going to crumble faster than I hoped, but I've got Windblast heroes in position. I can potentially keep this big blob of unit strength he's got kind of compiled, congested in my central table section, which is going to give him 2 points, but I think I can control multiple sections by the end. So, turn 5 for the Ogres. And of course there's a juicy double charge on the Iron Beast, he's going to get whooped. There's a double charge on the Archer Horde from the Chariot and the Warriors, they're going to get whooped. The shooters, what do? Well, they managed to waver the Duke, which is really annoying because I was hoping to use him to cause some havoc next turn. And the Iron Beast gets killed, obviously. The Archer Horde gets killed and everything turns round. And now, Rhordia turn 5. So, the Windblast bros, what do? Well, they put a bit of damage onto the Braves, but I'm not going to kill them by the end, so just a bit of an annoying blast on them, keeping them in the difficult terrain, maybe. And this is where the Honour Guard have actually positioned themselves in a threatening spot, where they can potentially charge the shooters next turn. So you can see they haven't actually moved very far here, which is why I said it didn't matter that they accidentally moved too far in the previous turn, because they didn't move to their maximum on this occasion here, because they didn't want to get to too much of a spicy zone where enemy units from down there can reach them up at the top. And then my Knights and my Spearling regiment double charged the Chariot regiment there and wavered it again, but I did lots of damage this time, so I would have expected to kill it. Unfortunately, not. And then the other regiment have moved up, inviting the Ogre shooters to charge them, basically, because they'll be ensnared and hindered, so I'd be quite happy to take that charge. There's the confirmation of the waver there. And look at that laser in action. You can see that we're working out angles of who can attack what and where from. So this game plan is working out a little bit. I've got all the ogres congested in my central section here for now. So turn 6. You can see that the ogre units there, they can potentially make it into other sections. For example, the warriors down here can just move sideways and get their unit strength into the bottom right section there. So, turn 6 for the ogres, what do? Well, they're starting to spread out, getting the heroes spread out a bit, trying to cover more ground, so they've got units in different sections, and they waver my sorcerer, so that's half my wind blast gone for turn 6. Over on this side, the ogre shooters do go into the regiment of spearlings there. We'll see if that works out. And the chariots just stuck there, wavered. The chariot hero goes into the duke to try and finish him off, and Grocky and the warriors are just spreading out. The warriors have moved sideways a bit, I think, so they are actually inside the bottom right table section now. So they're holding that right now. And the shooters do successfully kill that regiment, which is unfortunate for me, but they're turning around to face the honour guard now. The honour guard will not be charging them, because the honour guard want to stay where they are and claim that middle table section there. And now turn 6 for Rhordia. So if we look at this now, before my final turn, what can I do? So I've got 2 victory points for holding the opponent's home section. My opponent has 2 victory points for holding my home section. And then he's also got 1 victory point for holding the bottom right there. At the moment he is holding the top right, I think. No, actually it's a draw, because I've got 2 regiments in there, and he's got a horde. Oh no, he's got a horde and a regiment, so he is winning that one. So I would need to kill that chariot regiment and keep those guys in the same table section to claim it. And with my colossal nick in the bottom left table section, I own that one as well. So it really all comes down to that combat, and then whether we get turn 7 afterwards, because I can put myself in a winning position at the end of turn 6 here. And look at that, so those 2 units do successfully kill the chariot regiment, and that means that they're now claiming the top right table section with a unit strength of 4 in total compared to the 3 for that ogre shooter horde. The honour guard have positioned themselves. They don't want to go backwards because they would still have been in charge range, but in the flank, I think. So they just turn round to face the oncoming threat of Grockagamok. Should it go to turn 7, they will get charged in the front by him. And then over here, I use Wind Blast to push one of his characters out of whichever zone he was in, all the way back into my central section, I think, there. So that was Colossal Nick that did that. Just pushed him back into the middle, so he's not got the majority of his base in that section to contest it. So that means Colossal Nick is holding out on his own now. So you can see my Standard Bearer tried to attack his bigot as well in combat, which isn't going to do anything. So I can tell you that the game does actually end there. So the Ogres score 2 points here. Rhordia score 1 point for this top section here. 2 points for that one. 1 point for the bottom left, making 4. And the Ogres only score 2 for the middle one and the bottom right, which they just have as well, with that warrior unit, making a total of 3 for them. So the League of Rhordia win 4-3. So, very, very tasty result there for the League of Rhordia. Despite getting massacred in close combat in the middle, the game plan did kind of work. The fact that it happened quicker than I hoped meant that I was very much hoping we did not get a turn 7, and we didn't, because I knew it was going to take a certain number of turns to chew through that and then turn round and then start getting into a scoring position. But you can see it's only Grocky that actually made it out of my middle table section there, out of all those heroes and the chariot there as well. So those 4 characters in the middle there are potentially 1 unit strength each. So had they been more spread out, they could have actually claimed multiple table sections on their own. Or if one of them was helping the shooters, they could have tied up that one at the top there. But they all got kind of jammed in there. And yeah, so I would say it worked out nicely. The Honour Guard, I didn't want to just throw them in and get them killed. Their unit strength was too valuable, so I ended up using them quite conservatively and just hid them at the back. A big horde to claim that section meant that the enemy needed to get multiple guys over there, and that's going to be that. We did actually play out turn 7 for the lols afterwards to see what would have happened, and I think it turned into a draw, I believe, if I remember correctly. I didn't take any pictures of it though because it's not official canon. We just played it out just to see what would have happened, and a very, very close game, obviously. Did I kill more than the enemy? Possibly. It's pretty close. I think maybe I was slightly out-killed. I've got my Honour Guard and I've got some Knights left. Yeah, I think the Ogres probably have more points left on the table. Yeah, because there's the Shoot Horde as well. They were kind of blending in for a second there. So the Ogres definitely have more points on the table, I'm pretty sure. But positioning, playing for the scenario, pays off for the League of Rhordia there. If you've got a plan, it's all very well having a plan to kill the enemy or how the combat is going to go, which is what I did have in the middle. But if all that goes awry, you need to have a plan for the scenario as well, when that goes horribly wrong. And planning where to put your units, especially in scenarios like this where you have to have them spread out to score points. You need to have enough in each area to score. If you only have one scoring unit in a particular area and it gets killed, or it has to move somewhere else to score something and you're leaving points on the table, while you have multiple scoring units all clumped up together, then it can come back and bite you. And that's what happened here. So, win for the League of Rhordia. And there's a spoiler coming up for the previous game if you haven't watched that yet, so you should probably stop now and go and watch that if you haven't. But that is 2 practice wins for the League of Rhordia in a row, which means that I decided to stick with this list for the 4-foot Snake GT. I think it's fairly effective. I like the Spearlings and their ability to survive. I like the Iron Beasts to back them up, and their survivability as well. And then the killing power is provided typically by the Honour Guard and the volley guns. So, we'll see how that goes. There's going to be undoubtedly some filthy lists there. There always is at tournaments. We'll see if I come up against any of them, and we'll see if my list can actually stand up to the filth, as it were. So, doing quite well with these Rhordians now. Not just those 2 practice wins, but also the last tournament. After finishing last at the previous one to that, last time out, I managed to finish 2nd with them. So if that trend continues, there's only one way it's going to go, and that means a glorious Rhordian triumph. I wouldn't bet too heavily on it though. I've not been playing the army for that long, and I don't have as many options as I would like for building the ultimate filth list, which I probably will never have for this army, to be honest, because it would be too expensive. Nearly everything in the army is metal, and it's already a bit of a nightmare to keep it all contained and not have any of it break. Some of them, the cavalry models, especially the Honour Guard, tend to bend a little bit if they get manhandled too much. The spears can bend if someone accidentally nudges it, so they've got to be bent back into place. So they're standing up to it alright so far though, no breakages as yet, no paint has chipped off. So I put that down to my technique of double varnishing everything that's metal. We'll see if something breaks eventually though. With it being all metal, all stored in the same box, there is a risk. I think if this army ever got into a car crash, it would be possibly the biggest army carnage ever. There's no way any of them would survive intact, I think, with them all being metal. Right. So, that is the end of that. And the next video you will see is very likely to be the 4-foot Snake GT tournament report, which will be coming up, as far as this video is concerned, probably tomorrow. So you can look forward to that. I think there are 5 games at that event. I should probably just check the tournament pack, but I think there are 5. And you can look forward to that juicy goodness invading your senses and educating your brain, delivering tactical insight directly to your brain matter, and then you can absorb it throughout your entire body and become a tactical genius of Kings of War and the League of Rhordia in particular. I'm also working on a display board right now, so we'll see if that's finished in time. If it is, you'll definitely see pictures of it, because what would be the point making it if you're not going to show it off? So, don't forget to check out all the links in the description, especially the ones where you send me lots of money if you feel like giving me your life savings once a month or so. And don't forget to check out all the various social media shenanigans down there. And I think all that remains to be said now is, good night out there, whatever you are.